At 2:14 in the morning, 7 months pregnant, I pressed my ear against the bathroom door and listened to my husband laugh about how easily he had fooled me. He had just spent the evening rubbing my feet, singing lullabies to my belly, and crying real tears while promising I was his entire world. Then he called his mistress and said, quote, "She actually believed the crying act. Women are so predictable when they are pregnant." But here's what my husband did not know. While he was whispering sweet nothings to the woman he was hiding in a luxury hotel suite every Thursday night, I was building a case that would destroy him in front of 500 people, cost him his billion-dollar company, and put him in handcuffs on the stage of his own gala. He thought he married a fool. He married an architect, and I was about to redesign his entire life. My name is Vivian Carter. This is the story of how my husband, his mistress, and his own mother conspired to take my baby, steal my money, and erase me from my own life. And this is the story of how I burned their empire to the ground. But before we begin, I want you to know something. This story is not just entertainment. If you have ever felt that sinking feeling in your stomach, that quiet voice whispering something is wrong, this story will teach you exactly what to do about it, how to protect yourself, how to protect your children, and how to fight back when the person you love the most becomes the person who hurts you the worst. Stay with me until the end. What happens at that gala will be the most satisfying thing you hear all week. Every single day, thousands of women around the world ignore the voice inside them that whispers something is wrong. They stay silent because they are afraid. They stay because they think they are not strong enough. They stay because someone they love has convinced them that the truth is not real. This story was written for them and for you. If you took something from Vivian's story today, a lesson, a feeling, a moment that made you think, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story like this. Leave a comment below telling me, what would you have done in Vivian's shoes? And if you know someone who needs to hear this story right now, share this video with them. Sometimes a single story can change a life. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. That means more than you know. They say every woman knows, deep in her bones, beneath the layers of love and trust and hope. She knows. I knew the night my husband kissed my belly, whispered goodnight to our daughter, then drove to a hotel to meet the woman who wanted to replace us both. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. From the morning when everything still looked perfect, when I still believed in the life I thought we had built together. My name is Vivian Carter. I am 32 years old, 7 months pregnant, and until recently, I believed I was married to the love of my life. The penthouse smelled like fresh coffee and maple syrup that Tuesday morning. Nathan stood at the kitchen island in his tailored charcoal suit, flipping pancakes with the easy confidence he brought to everything he did. At 36, my husband was the kind of man other women noticed. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that curled slightly at his temples, and eyes the color of aged whiskey. He had built Carter AI from a dorm room idea into a $3 billion artificial intelligence company, and he wore that success like a second skin. "How are my two favorite girls this morning?" Nathan asked, sliding a plate of perfectly golden pancakes toward me. He reached across this counter and placed his hand on my belly. His fingers spread wide, as if trying to feel every movement our daughter made. "She is active today. She has been doing somersaults since 4 a.m., I said, pouring syrup over the stack. "I think she is training for the Olympics." Nathan laughed, that warm, rich sound that had made me fall in love with him 5 years ago at a technology conference where I was presenting my architectural designs for sustainable, smart buildings. He was the keynote speaker, a rising star whose company was revolutionizing how businesses used artificial intelligence. Our connection was instant. Within a year, we were married. Within 3, we had built a life that looked like a magazine cover. The penthouse on the 62nd floor, the weekends in the Hamptons, the charity galas where Nathan's hand rested on the small of my back like I was the only woman in the room. "I have a late meeting tonight," Nathan said, casually, scrolling through his phone. "New investor from Singapore wants to tour the lab. Do not wait up." Again? The word slipped out before I could stop it. This was the 3rd late meeting this week, the 5th this month. Nathan looked up, his expression shifting to gentle concern. "I know. It has been crazy lately. But once we close this funding round, things will calm down. I promise." He leaned across the counter and kissed me. A brief peck. Not the lingering kisses I remembered from our first years together. After Nathan left, I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city stretch out beneath me like a glittering map. I should have been happy. I had everything I had ever wanted: a successful career, a beautiful home, a baby on the way, and a husband who the world admired. But something had changed. Something I could not quite name. Nathan's warmth had cooled into polite distance over the past 4 months. His kisses became obligations rather than desires. The man who once could not wait to come home now found reasons to be anywhere else. I was loading the dishwasher when I noticed Nathan's jacket draped over the back of a chair. He had left in such a hurry he had forgotten it. As I picked it up to hang in the closet, a small receipt fell from the inside pocket. A florist on Madison Avenue, 2 dozen red roses, $48. Purchased yesterday. I had not received flowers from my husband in over a year. I stood there holding that receipt, feeling the paper between my fingers, telling myself there were 100 innocent explanations. A client dinner, a business partner's birthday, an office arrangement. I almost convinced myself. Almost. If those flowers were for me, I muttered to the empty kitchen, they got lost somewhere between the florist and here. That evening, while Nathan was supposedly meeting his Singapore investor, I sat in our living room watching a documentary about marine life that I was not really seeing. My phone lay beside me, Nathan's location sharing still active from when we had set it up years ago. I had never checked it before, never felt the need. I picked up my phone. My thumb hovered over the app. Then my daughter kicked hard, right beneath my ribs, and I put the phone down. I was being paranoid. Pregnancy hormones. Anxiety about becoming a mother. Nathan loved me. He had cried with joy when we found out about the baby. He had called his mother Eleanor immediately, announced it to his entire company, and insisted we celebrate with a weekend at our favorite coastal resort. That was the man I married. The man with the late meetings and the secret flowers was someone I refused to see. Not yet. I wish I had checked that phone. I wish I had listened to the whisper that had been growing louder in the back of my mind for weeks. Because the truth was already there, waiting for me. And when I finally found it, it would nearly destroy everything I had. The laptop changed everything. It was a Thursday evening, exactly 1 week after I found the receipt. Nathan had left for another late meeting, this time something about a product demonstration for a corporate client. I was making chamomile tea when I noticed his personal laptop open on the kitchen counter. Nathan never left his laptop unattended. Never. It was password protected, encrypted, and usually locked in his home office safe when he was not using it. As I reached over to close it, a notification slid across the screen. A message from someone saved simply as the letter S, followed by a heart. The preview read, "Last night was incredible. I can still feel your hands on me. When can I see you again?" The words blurred as my eyes filled with tears. I gripped the edge of the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. My daughter tumbled inside me as if responding to the surge of adrenaline flooding my body. With shaking hands, I grabbed my phone and photographed the notification before it disappeared. Then I closed the laptop, sat down at the kitchen table, and tried to remember how to breathe. Part of me wanted to call Nathan immediately, to scream and demand answers and release the pressure that was building in my chest like a bomb. But something held me back, an instinct older and smarter than my pain. If I confronted him now, with one screenshot and no context, he would explain it away. He would turn it around on me. He would make me feel crazy for asking. No, if I was going to face this, I needed to know everything. The next morning, I called the only person I could think of who could help. Margaret Chen, a friend from my law school days, now a partner at a prestigious firm downtown. I had spent 2 years in law school before switching to architecture, and Margaret had become my closest confidant from that chapter of my life. She listened without interrupting as I described the receipt, the late nights, the changed passwords, and the message on the laptop. "You need a private investigator," Margaret said firmly. "Someone discreet, thorough, and experienced with high net worth cases. I know exactly who to call." That is how I met Grace Morrison. Grace was 48, a former FBI agent who had spent 15 years in the Bureau's white-collar crime division before opening her own investigation firm. She was tall, lean, with silver-streaked dark hair, pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail, and eyes that seemed to catalog everything they saw. She wore simple clothes, drove a nondescript gray sedan, and radiated the kind of quiet authority that made you want to tell her everything. We met at a coffee shop, far from Nathan's usual haunts. Grace ordered black coffee and got straight to the point. "Tell me everything," she said. "Start with when you first felt something was wrong." I told her about the gradual changes over the past 4 months, the cooling affection, the late nights, the new cologne, the locked phone, the receipt, the message. Grace took notes in a small leather notebook, her handwriting precise and economical. When I finished, she looked at me with an expression I would come to recognize as her default state, compassionate but unflinching. "Mrs. Carter, I have been doing this for 20 years. The men who leave their laptops open, they want to get caught. It is a power move. He wants you to know he has options. He just does not want to be the one to say it out loud." The idea that Nathan had left that laptop open deliberately made my stomach turn. You think he did it on purpose? I think men who build billion-dollar companies do not leave encrypted laptops lying around by accident. But that is just my gut. Let me get you facts. Within 3 days, Grace had facts. The woman behind the initial S was Sienna Hayes, 28 years old, Senior Vice President of Communications at Whitmore and Associates, the public relations firm that handled all of Carter AI's media strategy. She was not just Nathan's mistress. She had direct, professional access to him, which meant their meetings were camouflaged by legitimate business interactions. Grace slid a photograph across the coffee shop table. Sienna was striking, with honey blonde hair, sharp cheekbones, and the kind of calculated poise that came from years of image management. In the photo, she was entering the Ashford Hotel through a side entrance, dressed in a fitted red dress and heels. "She uses the side door every time," Grace said. "Your husband goes through the lobby like he owns the place. Same hotel every Thursday, same room, Suite 412. Reserved under a corporate account that traces back to a shell company Nathan set up 6 months ago." 6 months, I repeated. That is before I even told him about the pregnancy. "The affair started 4 months ago, right after you announced the pregnancy, but the shell company and the hotel arrangement, those were set up 2 months before that. He was planning this before there was anyone to plan it with." Grace continued, "I also found that Miss Hayes has been researching you extensively. Google searches for your name, your architecture firm, your social media. She has been studying you for at least 3 months. This is not some woman who stumbled into an affair with a married man. She did her homework. I sat quietly, processing this. My daughter shifted inside me, a slow roll that pressed against my ribs. Grace leaned forward. There is one more thing. I talked to a housekeeper at the Ashford. Your husband buys a single red rose from the florist next door every Thursday before he goes upstairs. Every single week. The roses. Nathan used to bring me flowers every Friday. A tradition from our dating days. He stopped over a year ago, saying he was too busy for those kinds of things. Apparently, he was only too busy when it came to me. Grace studied my face. What do you want to do? I want to know everything, I said. Every detail, every meeting, every lie he has told her about me. And when I have enough, I want to confront them both, on my terms. Grace nodded, and something that might have been respect flickered in her eyes. Your husband books the same hotel room every Thursday like it is his subscription service. Same hotel, same room, same florist. He is not having an affair. He is running a logistics operation. If he put this much planning into his business, the company would be worth $10 billion. Despite everything, I almost laughed. Almost. I will have a full report for you within 2 weeks, Grace said, standing and leaving a 20 on the table. In the meantime, act normal. Do not change your behavior. Do not check his phone. Do not ask questions. Let him think he is smarter than you. Men like your husband always underestimate the woman they are betraying. That is going to be his biggest mistake. I drove home that afternoon with a strange clarity settling over me. The uncertainty was gone, replaced by something harder and more focused. I did not know yet how deep Nathan's deception went. I did not know about the financial schemes, the custody plans, or the conspiracy that reached all the way into his own family. Those horrors were still waiting for me. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I would not be a passive victim in this story. Whatever came next, I would face it standing up. Over the next 2 weeks, I became an actress in my own life. Every morning, I smiled at Nathan across the breakfast table. Every evening, I asked about his day with practiced interest. I attended my prenatal yoga classes, met with the nursery designer, and had polite dinners with my husband when he bothered to come home. I was playing the role of unsuspecting wife so convincingly that I sometimes frightened myself. Meanwhile, Grace's reports arrived like dispatches from a war zone. The affair followed a rigid pattern. Every Thursday at 6:30, Nathan left his office. He stopped at the florist for a single red rose. He arrived at the Ashford Hotel by 7. Sienna entered through the side door 15 minutes later. They stayed for exactly 2 hours. Then they left separately, Nathan returning home to shower and climb into bed beside me, as if nothing had happened. But the details Grace uncovered cut deeper than the schedule. She had cultivated a source inside Whitmore and Associates, Sienna's firm, and the picture that emerged was damning. Nathan had told Sienna that our marriage was essentially over. He said we lived separate lives. He told her the pregnancy was an accident that complicated an already dead relationship. He described himself as trapped, suffocated, desperately seeking a connection with someone who truly understood him. The lies were breathtaking. I remembered the evening 4 months ago when I told Nathan about the pregnancy. He had lifted me off my feet, spinning me around our living room, tears streaming down his face. He called his mother within the hour. If that was the performance of a trapped, unhappy man, he deserved an award at every ceremony in Hollywood. I was beginning to understand the full scope of who I had married. Then came the night everything shattered. It started with Nathan coming home early for once, carrying Thai takeout and a bottle of sparkling cider. He was charming, attentive, and devastatingly sweet. He rubbed my feet while we watched a movie. He talked about baby names, suggesting Claire after his grandmother. He placed both hands on my belly and sang a soft, off-key lullaby that made my eyes sting with tears. "I know I have been absent lately," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Work has been insane, and I have handled it badly. But you and this baby are everything to me, Viv. You are my whole world. I am going to do better, I promise." He looked directly into my eyes as he said this, and I saw tears glistening in his. Real tears. And despite everything I knew, despite the photographs and the hotel receipts and the messages, something inside me wavered. What if I was wrong? What if Grace's evidence had innocent explanations? What if the messages were taken out of context? What if Nathan truly loved me and I was about to destroy my family over a misunderstanding? "I am sorry," I whispered, and I meant it. I was sorry for doubting him. Sorry for the spreadsheets and the private investigator. Sorry for the suspicion that had taken root in my heart. I have been so worried lately about the baby, about us. I just need to know we are okay. Nathan pulled me close, his arms warm and strong around me. "We are more than okay. We are perfect. I love you, Vivian. Only you." I fell asleep that night feeling something close to peace for the first time in weeks. Then I woke at 2:14 in the morning to the sound of Nathan whispering in the bathroom. I lay perfectly still, my heart hammering so loudly I was certain he could hear it through the wall. His voice was low, intimate, carrying the kind of warmth he had shown me just hours earlier. "She does not suspect anything. I handled it perfectly. The whole crying routine, the foot rub, all of it. She actually apologized to me. I almost felt bad." He laughed softly. "Almost. I will see you Thursday, baby. Wear that blue thing I bought you." I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. My daughter kicked hard, as if she could feel the earthquake happening inside me. I slid down the wall outside the bathroom door and sat on the cold tile floor in the darkness. 7 months pregnant. In the home I thought was built on love. Listening to my husband laugh about how easily he had manipulated me into apologizing for catching him in a lie. That is called gaslighting. And until you have experienced it, you cannot understand how it hollows you out. When someone makes you apologize for their betrayal, when they use your love as a weapon against your own judgment, they are not just lying to you. They are trying to make you stop trusting yourself. If you recognize this pattern in your own life, please listen carefully. You are not crazy. You are not oversensitive. You are not imagining things. You are being manipulated by someone who values control more than your well-being. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. Call them. They understand exactly what you are going through. Nathan came back to bed at 2:30, smelling like mouthwash and self-satisfaction. He curled against me and murmured, "I love you," against my shoulder. I stared at the ceiling until dawn. The next morning, Nathan kissed me goodbye with the easy smile of a man who believed he had won. I smiled back. I told him I loved him. I waved as he walked to the elevator. Then I sat down at my desk and called Grace. "I need to see them together," I said. "This Thursday, at the hotel. I want to be there." Grace was quiet for a moment. "Are you sure? Once you walk through that door, you cannot take it back." I placed my hand on my belly, feeling my daughter's steady movements. "I am sure." I spent the next 4 days preparing with the precision that had made me one of the most sought-after architects in the city. Grace and I reviewed every piece of evidence. My attorney, Patricia Winters, a legendary divorce lawyer known in legal circles as the closer, helped me organize the documentation into an airtight presentation. $47,000 in credit card charges for dinners, jewelry, and hotel rooms. 16 consecutive Thursday visits to the Ashford Hotel. Photographs of Nathan and Sienna together at restaurants, in parks, and entering Suite 412. Phone logs showing hundreds of calls and messages between them. The Thursday arrived with deceptive calm. I woke early, feeling my daughter tumble inside me as if she sensed the significance of the day ahead. I dressed carefully in an elegant emerald green maternity dress that made me feel powerful rather than vulnerable. I styled my hair in soft waves. I applied makeup with deliberate care, not to impress Nathan, to armor myself with confidence. Grace picked me up at 6:45. We drove to the Ashford Hotel in near silence, the only sound, the quiet hum of the engine, and my own controlled breathing. Both confirmed inside, Grace said, checking her phone as we pulled into the hotel parking lot. Arrived on schedule. Thursday clockwork. The lobby was all marble and crystal. The kind of understated luxury that whispered old money. My heels clicked against the floor as we crossed to the elevator. My hands were steady. My heart was not. The ride to the fourth floor took 11 seconds. I counted every one. Suite 412 was at the end of the hallway. Soft music filtered through the door. Something classical. I took one deep breath, placed my hand on my belly, and knocked. Footsteps. A pause. The door opened. Nathan stood there in an unbuttoned shirt, wine glass in hand, his expression cycling from relaxed anticipation to confusion to absolute horror in the space of a single heartbeat. Vivian? My name cracked in his mouth like broken glass. Hello, Nathan? I stepped forward and he moved back automatically, the way people retreat from something unexpected and frightening. Grace followed me inside, positioning herself near the door. The suite was exactly as I had imagined from Grace's descriptions. Candles on the coffee table, 2 wine glasses beside an expensive bottle of Bordeaux. And Sienna Hayes, standing near the bedroom doorway in a silk robe, her face a mask of calculated surprise. I had expected to feel rage. Instead, I felt an almost clinical clarity, as if I were observing the scene from a great height. You must be Sienna, I said, and I watched her eyes dart to my pregnant belly, like a laser, finding its target. Nathan found his voice. This is not what it looks like. Vivian, please let me explain. Nathan, I have $47,000 in credit card receipts, 16 weeks of hotel records, and over 300 photographs. I know exactly what this is. I opened my bag and placed the folder of evidence on the coffee table between the candles. Then I looked at Sienna. He told you our marriage was over, did he not? That we lived separate lives, that the pregnancy was an accident, an unfortunate complication. Sienna's composure cracked for just a moment. He said you were separated. 4 months ago, when this affair began, Nathan spun me around our living room, crying with joy about becoming a father. He called his mother to share the news. We spent a weekend celebrating at the beach. Does that sound like a man trapped in a loveless marriage? I turned back to Nathan. I am not here to fight over you. You are not a prize. You are a disappointment. I am here so your mistress can see the belly of the woman whose life she helped destroy. And I am here to tell you both that I know everything. I walked out. Grace followed. We rode the elevator down in silence. In the car, I finally exhaled. I called Patricia on speaker. I did it. I confronted them both. I have everything documented. It is over. Grace glanced at me from the driver's seat. Her expression was not celebratory. Mrs. Carter, I need to tell you something. Be very careful over the next 48 hours. Men like your husband do not lose gracefully. The most dangerous moment in any relationship is when the person with power realizes they are about to lose it. I appreciated the warning, but in that moment, sitting in the passenger seat with the city lights streaming past. I felt something I had not felt in months. Control, strength, certainty. I should have listened to Grace. 24 hours later, Nathan Carter showed me exactly who he really was. It started with my credit cards. All of them declined when I tried to buy groceries the next morning. Then my phone rang 3 times in an hour. 3 of my biggest architecture clients, each calling to say they had received a call from Nathan expressing concern about my mental health crisis and suggesting they find alternative architects for their projects. By noon, my attorney called with worse news. Nathan had filed an emergency court motion. He was claiming I was mentally unstable, citing what he called obsessive surveillance behavior and paranoid delusions of infidelity. His filing described me as a danger to myself and my unborn child. At 2 o'clock, I drove home from Patricia's office to find that the locks on our penthouse had been changed. My key card did not work. The building's security guard, a man named Carlos, who had smiled at me every day for 3 years, could not meet my eyes. "I am sorry, Mrs. Carter. Mr. Carter's orders. Your belongings are in the lobby." 1 suitcase. That is what my husband had packed for me. 1 suitcase for a 7-month pregnant woman whose entire life was inside that building. The evidence folder I had compiled, the one I had left in my home office after the confrontation, was not in the suitcase. Nathan had it. Every photograph, every receipt, every document. I sat on a bench outside my own building, 7 months pregnant, with 1 suitcase and a phone that was almost dead. My credit cards were canceled. My clients had been sabotaged. My evidence was stolen. And somewhere, 62 floors above me, my husband was pouring himself a glass of wine and congratulating himself on being the smartest person in every room. The women's shelter on West 34th Street was clean, quiet, and heartbreaking. Grace drove me there after finding me on that bench, and the intake coordinator, a gentle woman named Diane, processed me with the practiced compassion of someone who had seen this story 1,000 times. "You are safe here," Diane said, handing me a stack of fresh towels and a room key. "Whatever happened, you and your baby are safe. Safe." The word felt foreign in my mouth. I was the wife of a billionaire, sleeping in a shelter while my husband slept in our penthouse with the woman who wanted my life. That night, lying on a narrow bed in a room shared with 2 other women, I had a panic attack, so severe I thought I was dying. My chest constricted, my vision tunneled. I could not breathe, could not think, could not do anything except curl around my belly and gasp for air while my daughter kicked frantically inside me, responding to the flood of stress hormones poisoning us both. Dr. Rachel Cole, my obstetrician, was called. She arrived within the hour, her face tight with concern as she checked my blood pressure and listened to the baby's heartbeat. "Your blood pressure is dangerously elevated," Dr. Cole said quietly. "Vivian, this level of stress can trigger premature labor. I need you to find a way to reduce your anxiety, or we could be looking at a very early delivery with serious complication." She documented everything: my blood pressure readings, my stress symptoms, the circumstances that brought me to a shelter. I did not know it then, but Dr. Cole's careful documentation would become critical evidence later. The next morning brought the second catastrophe. A process server arrived at the shelter at 8:15 a.m. He handed me a thick envelope with the kind of apologetic expression that suggested he knew exactly how devastating its contents were. Nathan was seeking full custody of our unborn daughter. The filing was brutal. It described me as homeless, financially unstable, and psychologically unfit to serve as primary caregiver. It included a psychiatric evaluation from a Dr. William Hargrove, a doctor I had never met, never spoken to, and certainly never been evaluated by. This fabricated evaluation described me as suffering from severe paranoid ideation and delusional jealousy that posed a risk to my child. Attached was a sworn statement from Eleanor Carter, my mother-in-law, a woman who had smiled at me across holiday dinner tables for 5 years, who had held my hand during my first ultrasound, who had helped me pick out nursery furniture just 2 months ago. Her statement described me as increasingly erratic, emotionally volatile, and potentially dangerous to herself and her unborn child. The entire family had turned against me, coordinated, choreographed, like a military operation designed to take everything I had left. The third catastrophe arrived in person. Sienna Hayes walked into the shelter's visiting area that afternoon wearing a designer coat and a smile that made my blood run cold. She was not there to apologize. "I brought you something," she said, placing a manila envelope on the table between us. Inside were property documents showing that Nathan had already added her name to the penthouse deed. Our penthouse, the home where I had planned to raise my daughter. "He chose me," Sienna said, and her voice carried the triumphant sweetness of someone who had won a game I did not even know we were playing. "He has been planning this for months, Vivian. The only reason he stayed as long as he did was to build the case against you. You were never going to win this." She paused, touching her own stomach with a deliberate, theatrical gesture. "And by the way, I am pregnant too. Nathan and I are having a boy. He is going to be a big brother to your daughter, whether you like it or not." She stood, adjusted her coat, and walked out of the shelter without looking back. I sat there for a long time after she left. My hands were on my belly, where my daughter was moving quietly, as if trying not to disturb me. Outside, the city hummed with the indifferent energy of 8 million people living their lives. None of them knew that in this small room, in this shelter, a woman's entire world had collapsed. I was alone, 7 months pregnant, homeless. My career was being systematically destroyed. My bank accounts were frozen. A fake psychiatric evaluation described me as insane. My mother-in-law had signed a statement calling me dangerous. My husband's mistress claimed to be carrying his child. And in a few weeks, I would face a custody hearing I could not afford to fight, brought by a man with unlimited resources and no conscience. I pressed my forehead against my belly and whispered to my daughter, the only person in the world who could not leave me, "I promise you, baby girl, somehow I am going to fix this." Here's something I learned in the darkest moment of my life, and I want to share it with you because it might matter to someone listening right now. If you ever find yourself in a situation where a partner is using financial control as a weapon, know this. In most states, a spouse cannot legally freeze you out of marital assets without a court order. Emergency legal aid is available through the American Bar Association. Document everything. Save copies of financial records outside the home. Cloud storage, a trusted friend, a safety deposit box. And remember this above all else. Being locked out of your home while pregnant is not a custody argument. It is abuse. Patricia Winters saved my life. Not literally, though some days it felt that way. She took my case pro bono, working 18-hour days to undo the damage Nathan had inflicted with surgical precision. Within 72 hours, she had filed an emergency motion of her own. She presented the court with evidence of Nathan's systematic financial abuse, including the canceled credit cards, the sabotaged client relationships, and the changed locks. She argued that denying a 7-month pregnant woman access to marital assets constituted a form of domestic violence. The judge agreed. A temporary order restored my access to our joint accounts and granted me occupancy of the penthouse. Nathan was ordered to vacate within 48 hours. Grace, meanwhile, performed a small miracle. She reminded me about the automatic cloud backup I had set up on my home office computer 2 years ago, a precaution I had completely forgotten about. Every document, photograph, and spreadsheet I had compiled was sitting safely in encrypted cloud storage. Nathan had stolen the physical copies. He had not even thought about the digital ones. I moved back into the penthouse on a Tuesday. The place felt different without Nathan. Bigger somehow, emptier, but also more honestly mine. Over the following 2 weeks, I rebuilt. I contacted former colleagues and architecture clients, explaining that the reports of my mental health crisis were fabricated by my estranged husband. My reputation in the industry was strong enough that 2 major clients returned immediately, including a hospital renovation project worth $3 million. A journalist friend named Lisa Whitfield called. She was an investigative reporter at a major financial publication, and she had been quietly looking into financial irregularities at Carter AI for months. "Vivian, I need to tell you something off the record," Lisa said. "Your husband has been moving money, a lot of money, offshore accounts, shell companies, transactions that do not add up. I have not published anything yet because I am still building the story. But if you have any financial records from inside the marriage, they could be very relevant." Things were turning around. I could feel it. The evidence was coming together. My legal team was strong. My career was recovering. And then Nathan called. "Viv, please, I need to see you. Not to fight, just to talk." Against Patricia's advice, I agreed to meet him at a neutral location, a coffee shop in Midtown. He arrived looking haggard and diminished, dark circles under his eyes, his suit slightly wrinkled. For the first time in months, he looked human rather than polished. "I made a terrible mistake," he said, and tears tracked down his cheeks. "Sienna meant nothing. It was weakness and stupidity, and I hate myself for it. I fired her from the company account. I told her it is over. I want to fix this, Viv. I want to fix us." He reached across the table and took my hands. "I know I cannot undo what I did, but I am begging you to let me try." I looked at this man I had loved for 5 years, this man who had spun me around a living room when he learned he would be a father, and for one dangerous moment, I almost believed him. The pull of wanting everything to be okay, of wanting the fairy tale to be real, is more powerful than most people understand. But then I remembered the bathroom at 2 in the morning. I remembered him laughing about how easy I was to manipulate, and the moment passed. "I will think about it," I said. I did not mean it, but I needed Nathan to believe the charm was working. I needed him off balance while Patricia built our case. The next court hearing destroyed everything. Nathan's legal team came prepared with weapons I had not anticipated. They produced screenshots of text messages allegedly sent from my phone to Sienna. Threatening messages, violent messages, messages I had never written. The fabrication was sophisticated. The screenshots included accurate timestamps and my actual phone number. They also presented testimony from Dr. William Hargrove, the psychiatrist I had never met, who claimed to have conducted a thorough evaluation of my mental state. He testified with calm authority that I exhibited classic signs of paranoid personality disorder exacerbated by pregnancy-related hormonal fluctuations. The judge, overwhelmed by the volume of documentation, reversed the temporary order. My access to the accounts was frozen again. Nathan's attorney, a slick man in an Italian suit, announced to the courtroom that they would be seeking full custody at the formal hearing in 3 weeks. See, I sat in Patricia's office afterward, staring at the wall. He fabricated those texts, I said. He hired a fake psychiatrist. He is manufacturing an entire alternate reality. Patricia nodded grimly. I know, and we are going to prove it. But I need you to understand something, Vivian. Your husband is not just cheating on you. He is trying to erase you. He wants full custody, your assets, and your silence. This is not a divorce anymore. This is a war. 2 days later, Sienna appeared at my prenatal appointment. She sat in the waiting room of Dr. Cole's office, conspicuously touching her stomach, and told another waiting mother, loud enough for the entire room to hear, "My boyfriend's ex-wife is here too." So awkward. She just can't seem to let go. I gripped the armrest of my chair and said nothing. But inside, something shifted. The last trace of grief burned away, replaced by something harder and more useful. Rage. The invitation to dinner at Eleanor Carter's estate arrived on a Wednesday. Hand-delivered. Cream-colored cardstock with embossed lettering. A family dinner to discuss the baby's future, it read. Grace advised against going. Patricia advised against going. Every rational part of my brain advised against going. But I went anyway, because I needed to look these people in the eye and understand exactly what I was fighting. Eleanor Carter's home was a Georgian mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut. All manicured hedges and old money restraint. I had spent 5 years of holidays in this house, sitting at the mahogany dining table, drinking from the crystal glasses, pretending I did not notice Eleanor's subtle jabs about my middle-class background and state school education. I arrived at 7. Nathan met me at the door, avoiding my eyes. The dining room was candlelit and beautiful. The table set for 6. Nathan sat at the head, Eleanor at the foot. Nathan's father, Richard, was absent, as usual, lost somewhere in his wine cellar or his studied indifference to his family's cruelty. And there, sitting in the chair that had been mine for 5 years of Thanksgiving dinners and Christmas Eves, was Sienna Hayes. She wore a cream-colored dress and a serene smile, her hand resting on her stomach in a gesture that had become her signature performance. She did not stand when I entered. She did not acknowledge me at all, except to take a slow sip of sparkling water and exchange a glance with Eleanor that communicated everything I needed to know. This dinner was not about the baby's future. It was about mine. Eleanor spoke first. Vivian, thank you for coming. We need to discuss the transition. Sienna will be Nathan's wife by spring. We need to ensure the baby has a stable home, which means understanding what that home will look like. The transition. As if my marriage, my life, my daughter were items on an agenda to be managed. The baby's home will be with me, I said quietly. Her mother. Eleanor smiled the way a cat smiles at a mouse. Vivian, dear, let us be realistic. You are living in a penthouse you cannot afford on your own, with a career that Nathan has very publicly expressed concern about, and a mental health situation that multiple professionals have documented. Sienna can provide stability. She and Nathan can provide the kind of family structure this child deserves. I looked around the table. Nathan stared at his plate, unable or unwilling to meet my eyes. Sienna touched her belly with calculated tenderness. Eleanor sipped her wine with the serene confidence of a woman who had already won. They were sitting in this beautiful room with its chandeliers and silver and fresh flowers, calmly discussing how to take my child. Nathan, I said, my voice steady, despite the earthquake inside me. Are you going to say anything? Are you going to sit there while your mother plans to take our daughter away from me? Nathan looked up. For just a moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Shame, maybe, or the ghost of the man I thought I married. Then Eleanor placed her hand on his arm, and whatever he had been about to say died in his throat. I think this is for the best, Viv, he said quietly. I know it does not feel that way right now, but someday you will understand. The room tilted, the candles blurred. I felt a sudden sharp pain low in my abdomen, followed by a warm rush of fluid down my legs. Something is wrong, I whispered. My water had broken. 7 weeks early. The next hour was chaos. Eleanor called 911 with surprising efficiency. Nathan hovered, pale and useless. Sienna sat frozen at the table, her performance finally interrupted by something she had not scripted. When the paramedics arrived, Nathan tried to ride in the ambulance. I found my voice, loud and clear, despite the contractions rolling through me like waves. Do not touch me. Do not you dare touch me. Grace, who had been parked outside the estate as a precaution, rode with me instead. She held my hand the entire way, her grip steady and sure. You are going to be okay, Grace said. You and your daughter are both going to be okay. Clara Rose Carter was born at 11:47 that night. 5 pounds, 2 ounces, tiny and perfect, and screaming with a ferocity that made every nurse in the delivery room smile. She had dark hair like her father and her mother's stubbornness. She gripped my finger with a fist the size of a walnut, and I knew in that moment that I would burn the entire world down before I let anyone take her from me. Grace stood by the window, watching me hold my daughter for the first time. She has got your eyes, she said, her voice softer than I had ever heard it. And your determination. She has been in the world for 10 minutes, and she already looks like she is planning something. Definitely your daughter. I laughed through my tears. Then I looked at Grace with an expression that made the former FBI agent straighten up. No more defense, I said. No more reacting. It is time to take Nathan Carter apart. The hospital room became my war room. Patricia visited daily with legal updates. Grace came with intelligence reports. Lisa Whitfield, the journalist, sent encrypted files about Carter AI's financial irregularities. And Dr. Cole documented every aspect of my premature delivery, building a medical record that directly linked my pregnancy complications to the stress caused by Nathan's campaign of abuse. But the weapon that changed everything walked through my hospital door on a Sunday afternoon. Brooke Carter, Nathan's 29-year-old sister. She wore no makeup. Her eyes were red from crying, and she carried a small USB drive that she placed on my bedside table like an offering. I cannot do this anymore, Brooke said, her voice breaking. I have been watching my brother destroy you for months. I kept telling myself it was not my business, that marriages are complicated, that there were two sides to every story. But there are not two sides to this, Vivian. There is the truth, and there is what Nathan wants people to believe. She sat down heavily in the chair beside my bed. Clara was sleeping in her bassinet, tiny fists curled beside her face. That USB drive has everything, Brooke continued. I started recording Nathan 3 months ago, after I overheard him on the phone bragging about how he was going to take full custody of the baby and push you out completely. He was laughing, Vivian, laughing about the fake psychiatric evaluations, laughing about changing the locks. He said, and I am quoting him exactly, she actually believed the crying act. Women are so predictable when they are pregnant. I felt the blood drain from my face as you recorded him. Audio recordings from his home office and his car. Conversations with his attorney about fabricating the text message evidence. Phone calls with Dr. Hargrove, who is not even a licensed psychiatrist, by the way. He lost his license 4 years ago for insurance fraud. Nathan pays him $5,000 per report. Brooke took a shaky breath. But that is not the worst of it. There are emails on that drive between our mother and Sienna Hayes. They go back 8 months, before the affair even started. What are you saying? I am saying our mother hired Sienna. She found her through a matchmaking service for wealthy clients, except Eleanor did not use it to find Nathan a date. She used it to find someone who could break up your marriage. The emails lay it all out. Eleanor offered Sienna $200,000 to seduce Nathan away from you. She has always hated you, Vivian. She thought you were beneath our family. The pregnancy made it worse because it meant you were permanent. The room was very quiet. Clara stirred in her sleep. Outside, I could hear the distant sounds of the hospital, machines beeping, shoes squeaking on linoleum, the ordinary soundtrack of a place where lives began and ended every day. Why now? I asked. Why are you telling me this now? Brooke looked at Clara. Because of her. Because my brother is about to take that little girl away from the best mother she could possibly have. And because I looked at myself in the mirror this morning and could not stand what I saw. She stood and walked to the door. My mother will never forgive me. Nathan certainly will not. But I do not care anymore. Use everything on that drive. Burn it all down. After Brooke left, I called Grace, then Patricia, then Lisa Whitfield. Within 24 hours, we had reviewed every file on the USB drive. The recordings were devastating. Nathan, in his own voice, describing his plan to strip me of everything. Eleanor, in her own emails, orchestrating the affair from the beginning. Dr. Hargrove, in recorded phone calls, negotiating his fee for fabricating psychiatric evaluations. But Grace was not finished. She had been independently investigating Sienna's pregnancy claim, and what she found was the final piece of the puzzle. Sienna Hayes is not pregnant, Grace said flatly, sitting across from me in the hospital room. She visited a fertility clinic 3 months ago for a consultation, but she never began treatment. She purchased positive pregnancy tests from an online retailer. I have the shipping records, the clinic's statement confirming no pregnancy was ever established, and pharmacy records showing she has not filled a single prenatal vitamin prescription. The fake pregnancy, the theatrical belly touching, the cruel announcement at the shelter, all of it was performance. All of it was lies. If you are listening to this story and something resonates with you, if you recognize patterns from your own life, please hear this. Documentation is everything. Cloud backups, copies stored with trusted friends, keeping your own separate records. These things can be the difference between being silenced and being heard. If you suspect financial abuse, contact a certified divorce financial analyst. They specialize in uncovering hidden assets. And remember, your spouse's financial manipulation during marriage can be used as evidence of dissipation of marital assets. You have more power than you think, even when they have done everything they can to make you believe otherwise. Patricia coordinated the final strategy. We had Nathan's own recorded admissions. We had Eleanor's conspiracy emails. We had proof that the psychiatric evaluations were fabricated by an unlicensed fraud. We had evidence of Sienna's fake pregnancy. And from Lisa Whitfield's investigation, we had documentation of millions of dollars in offshore transfers that constituted securities fraud. When do we move? Patricia asked. I looked at Clara, sleeping peacefully in her bassinet, and smiled. Carter AI's annual investor gala is in 2 weeks. 500 guests. Every business leader, journalist, and politician in the city. Patricia raised an eyebrow. You want to do this publicly? Nathan built his empire on charm and public image. I want to destroy it in front of everyone he has ever tried to impress. The Carter AI Annual Innovation Gala was the social event of the season. 500 guests filled the grand ballroom of the Metropolitan Grand Hotel, a glittering assembly of tech executives, venture capitalists, politicians, and media personalities. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in white linen. A 12-piece orchestra played jazz standards. Waiters circulated with champagne flutes and canapes that cost more per bite than most people spent on dinner. Nathan Carter stood backstage, adjusting his bow tie, preparing to deliver the keynote address that would announce Carter AI's newest artificial intelligence product. He was in his element, the spotlight his natural habitat. Sienna Hayes sat in the front row in a midnight blue designer gown, one hand resting on her supposedly pregnant belly, the other holding a glass of what everyone assumed was sparkling water. Eleanor Carter sat beside her, beaming with the satisfaction of a woman who believed her plan had succeeded perfectly. I was not in the ballroom. Not yet. I was in a private suite on the hotel's third floor with Grace, Patricia, Lisa Whitfield, and a team of federal agents who had been very interested in the financial evidence we had provided to the SEC 3 days earlier. A small monitor showed the live feed from the ballroom. Nathan took the stage to thunderous applause. "Ladies and gentlemen," Nathan began, his voice carrying the polished confidence of a man who had never been told no. "Thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate the future of artificial intelligence." He spoke for 12 minutes about innovation, vision, and the transformative power of technology. He was brilliant, charismatic, persuasive, every word crafted to inspire confidence and open wallets. He finished to a standing ovation. The screens behind him displayed the Carter AI logo, sleek and futuristic. Then the screens changed. The Carter AI logo dissolved into a photograph. Nathan and Sienna at the Ashford Hotel. Then another. Nathan buying roses at the florist. Then another. Sienna entering through the side door. The photographs cycled slowly, each one clear and undeniable. The applause died. 500 people stared at the screens in confused silence. Patricia Winters walked onto the stage from the wings, her heels clicking against the polished floor. She was dressed in a charcoal power suit, her silver hair swept back, her expression carrying the calm authority of a woman who had never lost a high-profile case. "Good evening," Patricia said into the microphone. "My name is Patricia Winters, and I represent Vivian Carter in her divorce from Nathan Carter. I apologize for interrupting, but there are some matters that require immediate public attention." Nathan lunged for the microphone. "What is this? Get off the stage. Security." Patricia ignored him. She pressed a button on the remote in her hand, and the screens changed again. This time, they showed a series of documents: financial records, bank transfers, offshore account statements. "Over the past 6 months," Patricia announced, her voice carrying across the silent ballroom, "Nathan Carter has transferred approximately $14 million from Carter AI's corporate accounts to personal offshore holdings in the Cayman Islands, Bermuda, and Luxembourg. These transfers were made without board approval, without investor knowledge, and in direct violation of federal securities regulations." The room erupted in murmurs. Nathan's face drained of color. Patricia pressed another button. The screens displayed the emails between Eleanor Carter and Sienna Hayes. These communications, obtained from a family source, document a conspiracy between Nathan's mother, Eleanor Carter, and his mistress, Sienna Hayes. They show that Eleanor Carter recruited and paid Sienna Hayes $200,000 to initiate a romantic relationship with Nathan for the express purpose of destroying his marriage to Vivian Carter, whom Eleanor considered socially beneath the Carter family. Eleanor stood abruptly, knocking over her champagne glass. "This is outrageous. This is defamation. Nathan, do something." Nathan was frozen at the podium, gripping the edges as if it were the only thing keeping him upright. Patricia was not finished. "Additionally, Nathan Carter submitted fabricated psychiatric evaluations to the family court prepared by an unlicensed individual named William Hargrove in an attempt to gain sole custody of his newborn daughter Clara. We have audio recordings of Nathan Carter discussing the fabrication of this evidence, as well as recordings of his communications with Dr. Hargrove regarding payment for these fraudulent reports. She pressed play. Nathan's own voice filled the ballroom, amplified through the sound system, clear and unmistakable. She actually believed the crying act. Women are so predictable when they are pregnant. Hargrove's report is perfect. By the time the custody hearing rolls around, the judge will think Vivian is completely unhinged. The silence that followed was absolute. 500 people sat in their evening wear, holding their champagne, and listened to a billionaire describe how he planned to steal his newborn daughter from her mother. Then Patricia delivered the final blow. One last item. Sienna Hayes has publicly claimed to be pregnant with Nathan Carter's child. We have obtained medical records, clinic statements, and pharmacy records that prove conclusively that this pregnancy is entirely fabricated. Sienna Hayes is not pregnant. She has never been pregnant. She purchased positive pregnancy tests online as part of a calculated scheme. Every head in the room turned towards Sienna. She sat frozen in the front row, her hands still on her belly, her face the color of chalk. A woman at the next table leaned over and said, loudly enough for those around her to hear, "Was any of it real?" Sienna could not answer. She stood on shaking legs and tried to move toward the exit. Brooke Carter rose from her seat in the middle of the ballroom. Her voice was clear and strong. "Everything on those screens came from me. My brother is a liar, a fraud, and an abuser. And our mother helped him every step of the way. I could not stay silent anymore." Nathan finally spoke, his voice cracking. "Brooke, how could you do this to your own family? How could you do this to yours?" The ballroom doors opened. 4 SEC agents and 2 federal marshals walked in with the unhurried pace of people who knew their authority was absolute. They approached the stage. "Nathan Carter, you are under arrest for securities fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes. Please come with us." Nathan backed away from the podium. He looked out at the crowd, at 500 faces, staring back at him with shock and contempt and fascination. He looked at Sienna, who would not look back. He looked at his mother, who was being approached by a second group of agents for questioning about her role in the scheme. Then he looked at the back of the room where I had just walked in. I stood in the doorway, Clara asleep in her carrier against my chest, wearing a simple white dress and no expression at all. I did not speak. I did not need to. The screens were still displaying evidence. Nathan's own voice was still echoing off the ballroom walls. And every phone in the room was recording. The agents handcuffed Nathan Carter on the stage of his own gala, in front of 500 of the most influential people in the country. Camera flashes turned the ballroom into a strobe light. The image, a billionaire in a tuxedo with his hands behind his back, went viral within minutes. Grace, standing beside me, pulled out her phone and texted me a single message. I felt it buzz against my hip. I checked it later. "Your husband just got arrested in a tuxedo in front of 500 people. If this does not make the documentary, nothing will." I texted back one word: perfect. 6 months later, I stood in the sunlit office of Carter and Associates Architecture, my newly established firm in a converted brownstone in the West Village. I had kept Nathan's last name for the company, not as a tribute, but as a reminder that the name Carter now belonged to me and Clara, and we would carry it with more integrity than it had ever known. Clara sat in a bouncy chair beside my desk, 6 months old and already showing the kind of alert, observant temperament that made Grace joke she would make an excellent investigator someday. She had her father's dark curls and her mother's brown eyes, and a disposition that alternated between angelic calm and ferocious determination. The divorce was final. Patricia Winters had earned her reputation. The settlement gave me the penthouse, which I immediately sold because some places carry too many ghosts. I received 60% of the marital assets not frozen by federal investigators. I received full sole custody of Clara, with Nathan granted supervised visitation twice a month. Though he had only exercised that right 3 times so far, the court had also ordered Nathan to pay for a public apology read by his own attorney in open court, acknowledging his pattern of deception, financial manipulation, and emotional abuse. Nathan Carter was awaiting trial for securities fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes. His company had collapsed within weeks of his arrest, the board voting unanimously to remove him as CEO and initiate bankruptcy proceedings. He lived in a rented studio apartment in Jersey City, a far cry from the 62nd floor penthouse. His bail conditions prohibited contact with me except through attorneys. Sienna Hayes was fired from Whitmore and Associates the day after the gala. She was subsequently sued by 3 former clients for professional misconduct and by the fertility clinic whose name she had fraudulently invoked. Her fake pregnancy became a national news story, the subject of think pieces about deception and entitlement. Last I heard, she had moved to a different state. I did not care enough to find out which one. Eleanor Carter's social standing disintegrated overnight. She was removed from 2 charity boards, expelled from her country club, and publicly condemned by the very society she had spent decades cultivating. The investigation into her role in the financial conspiracy was ongoing. She and Nathan no longer spoke, though whether that was by choice or by legal advice, I did not know. And Brooke, beautiful, brave Brooke, who had risked everything to do the right thing. She had started her own technology consulting firm, funded by investors who had fled Carter AI and recognized her talent. We had dinner together every Sunday, and Clara adored her aunt, reaching for Brooke's face with chubby hands and squealing with delight whenever she walked into the room. Grace Morrison continued her investigation practice. She sent me flowers on the anniversary of our first meeting with a card that read, "To the strongest woman I have ever had the privilege of working for. Also, you still owe me for that parking ticket." I paid the ticket and sent her a bottle of the good bourbon she pretended she did not drink. Patricia Winters added my case to her firm's website under the heading Notable Outcomes. She told me once, over coffee, that in 30 years of divorce law, she had never seen a client handle such devastation with such grace. I told her there was nothing graceful about crying in a women's shelter at 2 in the morning. She said that was exactly what Grace looked like. Dr. Rachel Cole continued to be my obstetrician and had become a friend. Her meticulous medical documentation had been crucial in the custody case. She was now working with a legal advocacy group to improve documentation standards for physicians treating patients in abusive situations. The architecture firm was thriving. I had 7 clients, 2 full-time employees, and a waiting list. I was designing a community center for the organization that ran the shelter where I had spent those terrible nights. Pro bono, because some debts cannot be measured in money. It was a Saturday afternoon in October when it happened. I was at the park near our new apartment, a sunny 3-bedroom in Brooklyn Heights that smelled like fresh paint and possibility. Clara was in her stroller, wearing a ridiculous bear hat that Grace had bought her, babbling at pigeons with the intensity of someone delivering an important speech. A young woman sat down on the bench beside me. She was in her late 20s, visibly pregnant, maybe 5 or 6 months along. She wore sunglasses even though the sky was overcast, and her hands twisted in her lap the way hands do when they are trying not to shake. I recognized those hands. I had had those hands. We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching Clara terrorize the pigeons. Then the woman spoke, her voice small and careful. "Can I ask you something strange?" "Of course. How do you do it? Being a mom alone? Making it all work?" She pulled off her sunglasses, and I could see she had been crying. "My husband, he is not who I thought he was, and I do not know what to do." I looked at this woman, this stranger on a park bench who could have been me a year ago, and I felt the full weight of everything I had been through settle into something useful, something worth passing on. "I'm going to tell you 3 things," I said, "and I want you to really hear them. First, secure your financial independence right now, today. Open a personal bank account in your name only. Make copies of every financial document you can access: tax returns, bank statements, property deeds, investment accounts. Store them somewhere your husband cannot reach: a friend's house, a safety deposit box, encrypted cloud storage. Do this before anything else." The woman nodded, her eyes wide. "Second, build your support network before you need it. Tell someone you trust what is happening: a friend, a family member, a counselor. Isolation is the most powerful weapon an abusive partner has. The moment you let someone else into your situation, you take that weapon away." Clara threw her toy giraffe out of the stroller. I picked it up, handed it back, and watched her immediately throw it again. I almost smiled. Third, and this is the most important one, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it is wrong. You do not need proof to feel what you feel. You do not need permission to protect yourself. And you absolutely do not need to wait until things get worse to start making a plan. The woman wiped her eyes. "How do you know all this?" "Because I have been exactly where you are, and someone helped me when I thought no one could." I reached into my bag and pulled out a card. It had the number for the National Domestic Violence Hotline and Patricia Winter's office number. I had started carrying these cards 3 months ago, because I had learned that sometimes the most important thing you can give someone is not advice. It is a lifeline. The woman took the card with both hands, like it was something precious. "Thank you," she said. "I do not even know your name." "Vivian," I said. "And you do not need to know my name to know that you are going to be okay. Because you are sitting on this bench, asking these questions, which means you have already started fighting. And that is the hardest part." She stood, tucked the card carefully into her pocket, and walked away. I watched her go, hoping she would make the call, hoping she would find her own version of Grace and Patricia and Brooke, hoping she would discover the strength that was already inside her, waiting to be needed. Clara threw the giraffe again. This time it landed on my lap. She looked at me with her big brown eyes and grinned, a drooly, toothless, luminous grin that contained every good thing in the world. "You and me, kid," I said, tucking the giraffe back into the stroller. "We are going to be just fine." They say every woman knows. Deep in her bones, beneath the layers of love and trust and hope, she knows. But knowing is not enough. It is what you do with what you know that defines who you become. I chose to fight, not for a man, not for revenge, not even for justice, though justice came anyway, dressed in a charcoal suit and carrying handcuffs. I fought for the tiny girl sleeping in her stroller beside me. I fought for the woman I wanted to become, and I fought for every woman sitting on a park bench somewhere right now, holding a secret that is eating her alive, wondering if she is strong enough to face the truth. She is. She always was. She just had not found out yet. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with real-life lessons. Every detail was crafted with purpose, because we believe great stories do more than entertain. They empower, educate, and remind you of the strength you already carry inside.